Luka's legacy and the expected adjustments for Game 3.
I'm so ready to talk about this conspiracy theory. Y'all are not ready.
You're not ready. Guess who is? We are right here, Locked On Mavs.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good!
And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and coordinator for the Locked On Podcast Network. And joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor at Mavs.com, the Game 3 thirsty hunk. The One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
I'm a company man. I'm a company man.
Wearing that Locked On gear.
Locked On gear. Let's go.
You get that shirt for being with Locked On for 2 years, by the way.
Let's go. So what did I got a mug too. What did the mug?
3 years.
Oh, what's 4 years?
Jacket. I had the jacket. I don't think you do. Do you have the jacket? Because I think they got your anniversary wrong.
Actually, yeah, May 30th, coming up this Sunday.
Yeah, 31 is the
will
first.
Be 4 years on the dot that we started hosting Locked On Mavs, and we'll be going into our 5th year. So shout out to you guys. It's insane that we started doing this 4 years ago.
And when we started, there was nothing, and now we've built it Mavericks-wise. It was Harrison Barnes. It was the end of Dirk. It was no Dennis. Not even that at that point. There was nothing. And now the Mavericks are going into Game 3 with a 2-0 lead against the LA Clippers. So much good stuff to get into. Today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Go to BuiltBar.com and use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. There were no Built Bars back when we started in 2017.
That's very true. Probably in the testing phase.
They may have existed somewhere, but we didn't know about them, so they might as well have not exist. So, all right, let's start with one of the big stories from Game 2, before Game 2, that we didn't get to because we wanted to just talk about Game 2, which, by the way, thank you to everybody that listened via the podcast or via YouTube.
Yeah.
A lot of you listened both on the podcast and on YouTube, so thank you so much. We had 11,000 views on our YouTube video from yesterday. Absolutely wild. Blew my mind. One day, got 11,000 views. That was absolutely awesome. So thank you. If you haven't subscribed to our podcast, go subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube right now, we also have a podcast. You can get it on. It's the same thing, but you can get it on
Same
Apple,
thing.
Spotify, all that kind of stuff. But you can listen on the go. All right. Kristaps Porzingis was fined $50,000 by the NBA for an infraction of the NBA's health and safety protocols, which I don't really understand at this point if you're vaccinated, but I guess they're trying to be overly cautious, and I guess they're still in place from when players weren't vaccinated yet, and not every player is vaccinated yet. So I think there has to be a blanket rule for everybody, and then you make kind of exceptions for players that are vaccinated, I think. And so I guess that's why there's still rules in place, just to cover everything, which still doesn't really make any sense. But Porzingis gets fined because he went to a bar, or he went to a club, is what has been the official statement that has been
Tim
called.
McMahon from ESPN reported strip club.
You can put strip in front of it, disco lounge club. You can put whatever you can put whatever words you want in front of it.
Disco lounge sounds amazing.
He went somewhere he wasn't supposed to go and was fined by the league. And do we want to the merits of this? I asked Mavs fans on Twitter if they were upset with this, and most of them said it doesn't matter. As long as he plays well, we don't really care. We would have been upset if he was suspended for a game, which he wasn't. And so the Mavs kind of dodged a bullet there. But any thoughts on the merits of the fine or the, what Porzingis did or anything like that? Because afterwards, after Game 2, he started with a statement before any media got to ask any questions, and he said it was a stupid decision. It was a stupid mistake. I didn't actually understand the rules myself, and I decided to go somewhere, and I just shouldn't have gone. That was just it was just kind of negligence is what he said.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I was kind of frustrated by it. I did think it was a little selfish on his part just because, the there's still protocols in place. No matter if we don't know them or not, there's still all of this stuff. I mean, we just saw Karis LeVert miss both of the play-in games, because he was in health and safety protocols. Now, a lot of people assume that he tested positive, but that never did come out. So it's like, all right, we just saw a good player on a team miss meaningful games. So if there's still protocols in place, there's still rules in place, there's still a way for you to miss basketball games. I found it frustrating that one of our star players went out in LA in between games. Like, you have one night off and you go out and you risk that. Like, that's the thing that rubbed me the wrong way. And I did find it a little selfish on his part of, man, if you did get suspended, I mean, that's huge, bro. Like, especially after last year and like getting ejected in that game and missing the games of injuries, and the team won game one. And I think the biggest problem with all of this right now from a fan media perspective is we just don't know. There's no clarity in that. The LeBron situation happened earlier. All those pictures came out on his, social media and all this stuff. And people want to make, even including myself, like, I quote tweeted and it's like, I'm fascinated to see, that was my tweet. I'm fascinated to see how the league handles this because it's LeBron. And we know if that was someone else, would have been different? I don't know. Did LeBron's situation push the league's hand of, okay, even if there were all these rules for LeBron's, social commercial type of thing, did that push their hand of saying, all right, now we have to relax the rules? Because even now, look at Porzingis. If Porzingis, like ESPN reported, did go to a strip club and he just got $50,000, that's all he got. I mean, James Harden is excited right now, okay? Because that's setting the precedent. Like, LeBron stuff set the precedent. KP stuff now has set the bar even higher of this is what you can get away with. So I think these two examples right here now give us the, okay, well, nobody should be getting suspended, right? Like, what is the bar for somebody to be in health and safety protocols right now? And I don't think that they can enforce that now moving forward.
I think it's changed because players have gotten vaccinated too, right? I don't recall or remember if Karis LeVert had been vaccinated or anything like that. There had been talks about Dennis Schroeder, right? He, at the end of the season, he had not been vaccinated, so he was in protocols, I believe. There's it's a whole complicated, and it's so gray right now, right? It's not it's not the bubble, right? When the bubble, you had guys that would, if you break protocol, it's very easy. Like, you left the premises or you did something that was against the rules. The rules were very well laid out before they went. Now it's not. Now it's just so gray and out there. So yes,
and that's what you have to accept as the league. If you're going to leave it gray, then you have to accept when people come at you and do the whole like, oh, it's rigged, it's LeBron. It's like,
it's gray for us. I feel like the players should know. Maybe they don't. Seems like Porzingis didn't really understand. Maybe he just didn't care to understand, which goes to the point about it being a selfish move, which it probably was anyway. But yeah, it's the players should know, right? Like, at least the team should know if something like that happens. You also wonder how they found out. Like, how did the league find out that he went somewhere? Did they see him on social media? Did the Mavericks report it? Maybe the Mavericks are reporting it.
About it. Yeah, I seen some tweets about it that night, or I guess some videos, photos leaked here and there. But I just didn't read much into it because I hadn't seen anyone else tweet about it. And then, bam, that comes out the next day, and it's like, all right, unfortunate.
But here we go. Here's my conspiracy. You ready for this?
Ready.
Put the tinfoil hat on. You ready for the tinfoil hat? All right.
Yeah.
Kristaps Porzingis, game 1, did not play well. Okay? Understatement, possibly. Did not play well. I mentioned a couple times, he was really in his head, it seemed. He had those 3 plays that should have been fouls at the beginning of the third quarter, and then was just kind of out the rest of the game. Came back in the fourth quarter, did a couple things, but wasn't shooting the ball well, wasn't really playing defense that well, didn't rebound basically at all. And so you're wondering, like, okay, bad game. He does get in his head. He takes himself out of games at times. Did the Mavericks go to the league and say, what would happen? Let's say, what would happen if a player went out, or a player went here, or a player went to this place, And the league came back and said, well, after this LeBron situation, we had to change everything up because he's the golden boy. We're not going to take him out. So now all the rules have changed. The goalposts have changed.
Welcome.
They probably didn't word it like that, but maybe they said something like that. And they said it would cost them, it would be a fine probably. It depends on which place. 25,000 maybe if it's here, 50,000 if it's somewhere egregious. Right? And then Mark Cuban goes, hey, Porzingis, go have some fun. Go blow off some steam. Have a night off because if you get fined, I got you. So then he goes out and comes back and he's like, hey, we'll take the PR hit, whatever. We'll play it off. And then you have a good game, your second game, and you blow off some steam. And then, boom, everything's back to normal. I'll pay your fine. It'll be good.
It was the only time KP gave up 3-pointers for a 1.
Coming up, we'll get into Luka's legacy when it comes to this playoff series. And with just how well he's playing right now as a 22-year-old NBA player. We'll get into that, talk about him, and then we'll get into some expected adjustments. Get into that. But before we do, let's talk about rockauto.com. Rock Auto is an auto family business serving auto parts to customers online for 20 years. They've been in this game. They've been doing this. They've been molded by these fires of auto parts for everything that you need. If you're trying to fix your car, you're trying to replace something in your car, they have the exact parts, the specifications that you need. Just go
there. Door handle. You think they have door handles?
Go check it out. Go to rockauto.com. Their catalog is unique and remarkably easy to navigate. Search the year, the make, the model of your car, and see everything that they have available for you. Go to rockauto.com. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box. They know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into Luka Doncic. He's playing at an incredible level. I was on the Locked On Today podcast, which is an excellent podcast. You can start your day every morning with all the biggest news in sports. I was on there, and Peter Bukowski, the host, asked me, who's having the best playoffs so far? And he said, well, we sort of gave away our hand by inviting the Locked On Mavericks host on to talk about who it is. But it's far and away Luka, right? I mean, like, you could put the narrative in there. You could put the stats in there, like whatever you want. Jokic and Lillard are having pretty good statistical series, but they've split games. Luka has won 2 games in LA and all that. Trae Young, we just finished watching Knicks and Hawks, so Trae Young's second game wasn't necessarily as good as the first one. They lost that one.
Bummer.
I guess Joel Embiid and Tobias Harris are having decent seasons, but I think it's Luka. Far and away, it's having the best so far through a couple games. It hasn't been very long at all. But what do we think about Luka and his legacy with this season, especially so young in his career? A lot of people talk about, when does he hit this level? What does he hit this level? We've mentioned on this show, there's not a lot of finals MVPs that are 22 years old or 23 years old. They usually are 25, 26, 27. You have to get into your prime a little bit in order to reach that point, to get to that level. Is it possible for Luka? Do we start playing some hypotheticals here? And what would it mean for him to win a title or win this series or get to the Western Conference Finals or anything like that?
Yeah, it's crazy when you look at these all-time great players that you're looking at like top 20 all-time players. And now, we're obviously talking about Luka right now in the sense of they're up 2-0. The series is not done. I don't think it's over. They are going to Dallas, all this stuff. But still, it's like, what if Luka started off so hot, he's playing so well, the odds were
riding high. We're gonna have some fun with it, right? We might as well.
And like the odds, I mean, we talk about the odds on this pod. BetOnline AG, that's the place you want to be for all of your bets. But
stop. You put on a Locked On shirt and you're a company man now.
But like the Clippers are so heavily the favorite in this series. So everybody picked them on national, except for Royce Young. Shout out Royce Young. But like that's in it. It's going against Kawhi, Paul George, and for Luka, if he leads the Mavericks and beats these guys, it's like, is this his like really big moment that when you look at these generational top 20 players, some of these guys have these moments quicker than you would think that they would have them. That when you look at, I mean, he gets compared to LeBron so much, and rightfully so, because just their numbers and style of play and everything. But you look at LeBron's, finals run back in 2007. It's like he had no business taking that team to the finals in 2007, but he had that one series, and it's that. And for me, and other people might disagree with this, but for me, he had that one series that at the age of 22, LeBron goes up against the Pistons. And I know it's a different type. Pistons had been there, done that. Clippers really does. They don't have. It's not these. They're not exact comparisons, but he had that series that he goes against the Pistons, and he averages 25, 9, and 8 in that series. He beats that Pistons team, and that was the moment you're like, you're 22, and you did that to the Pistons. Like, that is insane. Like, that was the series that for me was like, all right. Here we go. Like, buckle up for the rest of your career.
Cleveland were down 0-2 in that series, by the way.
That's wild.
Won the last four. So yeah, really interesting. Yeah. So there's always like that series that stands out that he's doing it a little earlier than you expect.
That happens sooner. Actually, can I give you 3 more series?
I'm ready. I'm for it.
I nerded out a little bit on this, just a little bit. Now, I know other people will have different series in this. You could go back and look at like Magic. I mean, obviously Magic, went to the finals and all that stuff very early.
He had Kareem.
But couple different series. Kevin Durant, 2012, San Antonio Spurs in the Eastern Conference Finals. He's 23 years old. And it's like, this was the run that this Thunder team. What did I say? Did I say Eastern?
You said Eastern Conference.
Okay, Western Conference Finals, and it's the young guys. It's Durant, it's Harden, it's Russ, it's all these super young guys, early 20s. So you're like, all right. Because anytime you talk about it like a generational star, it's like, all right, you have to ride out the path, It's like, all right, early 20s, get to the playoffs, get beat up, have a couple, rounds. That
everyone's rooting for you, and then eventually you win and you get to the highest level, then no one's rooting for you. And
everyone hates you. It's this huge cycle. It's like you try to make a conference finals. You might make a finals, then you're going to lose. And it's like, and then it's like late 20s. That's when you're supposed to hit the finals. That's when you're supposed to really, if you're that type of star, you're supposed to start winning then. That's the timeline people want to lay out in front of you. But Durant and those guys, he's 23, and they beat the Spurs. They beat Duncan, Ginobili, Tony Parker, and those guys in 2012. They go to the finals. Now, they get beat by LeBron and them, but it's like we were all watching that young Thunder team. We're like, all right, this is a little too early, right? A little too early. Let's go to MJ. I mean, he didn't win. I want to throw this in there. He didn't win this series, but 87, he's 23 years old. He goes against Boston, and he puts up 63. And you're like, holy crap. Okay. Now, this was, we were both, younger for this, and he didn't win the series. So it's not the exact thing of like, hey, you're beating this team that you're not supposed to beat. But he goes into the Garden and puts up 63 on Bird and those guys. And they lose the series and stuff. But at 23, you're like, holy crap, you just put up 63 in the Garden. It's a similar type thing. And my last one, that I think some people overlook in this when they're talking about young guys kind of hitting the stage earlier than what they should. It's one of your boys, Shaq. You look at 1995, Shaq, he's 22 years old, and they beat the Bulls. They beat the Bulls, and he averages 24 and 13. Now, this is when Jordan came back and only played, 17 games. He came back and all that stuff towards the end. But they beat the Bulls in the second round. It's like, they had no business beating that Bulls team. I mean, it's Jordan. He'd won 3 titles. They're like, all right, like, Chicago's back. They're going to go straight to the finals. He comes back, and Shaq, at 22 in 1995, leads this Magic team, averages 24 and 13. It's like those, like, we're talking top 20 players of all time. Like, these guys hit this stage earlier than what we can ever imagine. And I think if Luka continues this, like, this series could be that one of Luka's great and we all recognize it, but we could look at this series and be like, at 22, Luka beat Kawhi, Paul George, and these guys, and he averaged what? What is he even averaging in this series right now? 30.
33, I think, right?
33, 10, and 9 or whatever it is. Like, that's we're going to look. I think we could look at this series, and if it progresses and goes on a longer playoff run as okay, this is your LeBron Pistons series. This is your KD Spurs series. This is your Shaq Bulls series. This could be that for a generational talent like Luka.
Especially looking back, and we'll look at some of these players and say, well, he did it with those guys, right? Like we may look back and say, man, he did it with guys like Porzingis was, in hindsight, we'll know exactly how to assess Porzingis. People will either say, oh, but he had an all-star in Porzingis, right? Like he had that next guy. Or they'll say, yeah, but he drug Porzingis' ass to wherever he did.
And I get the Clippers are not like, I know the examples I gave were the Pistons. They've been there, done that. Spurs, been there, done that. Chicago, obviously, been there, done that. I get that the Clippers haven't been there and done that, but the Clippers are such a heavy favorite. Kawhi has been there and done that. Like Kawhi has. Paul George, he hasn't done that, but like these guys are such a heavy favorite, and they have the roster and the answer for a guy like Luka that it's the similar vein of that.
Yeah, coming up, I want to get into some of that playoff experience because it's stark. It's very different. And it's really hard to try and find teams like those Celtics, like those Pistons. Teams just don't stay together like that anymore, right? Like if you go back to the, 2017 All-Star game, like none of those players are still with the teams that they're with now. It's like Curry and like that's kind of it, right? Like there's maybe one or two, like I think Bradley Beal is another one, but there's just not many players that stay with those teams. The Warriors would be like one team that stayed together for that long and stuff, but yeah, so coming up, we'll get into some of that, get into some more stats, and then some maybe expected adjustments for Game 3. We'll get into that coming up. But before we do, we got to talk about Isaac's favorite. It's BetOnline. We mentioned it before. BetOnline is a place to put down some money on sports. They're taking odds all the time for any kind of sporting event that you want to put money down on. Let's see if they have Dallas Mavericks game up already. They do, in fact. Let's share this. If you're watching on YouTube, Locked On Mavericks, you can see as I'm pulling this up, Locked On Mavs, 2-point underdog at home, the Dallas Mavericks. Ooh.
At home?
Mavericks 2-point underdog at home. Clippers still 2-point favorite on that one. So
how can you be up 2-0 and you're at home and you're still the underdog?
The odds are just the Mavericks are now the favorite though in the series. So minus 270 favorite in the series, which is pretty nice. Okay. So they've switched that. It was minus 400 and now it's for the Clippers and now it's minus 275. So if you want to put some money down on that, if you think the Mavericks will win Game 3, go put some money down on it. Go win it. The odds are ever in your favor. And so use that promo code LOCKEDON and get a 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Also going to tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're absolutely delicious. If I know how to type in the URL correctly, go check them out right now. There's all kinds of incredible flavors that you can check out. Anything with coconut in it is delicious. The raspberry is really good. The cherry barcia, they're perfect as a snack or as a meal sort of bridge from one side of a meal to another. If you're on the go, you can bring them with you. Put them in the fridge. People have been putting them in the fridge and telling me that they're really, really good, or the freezer if you want to work, right? Like if they're going to be frozen. Raspberry, cherry barcia, they're both good. 130 calories, 17 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar in a bar that tastes absolutely delicious, covered in 100% chocolate. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your next order with Built Bar at BuiltBar.com. All right, Isaac Harris. So I was looking up some stats today. How many total playoff games do you think this Mavericks team has played? Not together, but the players individually. And there's in the 10-man rotation for the Dallas Mavericks. So Luka, Dorian, Hardaway, Maxey, Porzingis, Brunson, Richardson, Willie Cauley-Stein, Nicolo Melli, Dwight Powell. I'm going to count the 2 games that they've played so far in this playoffs. Like right now, how many games do you think that they've played? You have to think through it.
Tim's going to have a lot of those.
Yeah, he's got a couple. Richardson's got a couple too.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say like 25.
91 total. You gotta add all of them together, especially since Luka is 8, Dorian's 8, Maxey Kleber's 8, Tim Hardaway Jr. 23, so not like a ton. Richardson 25. Those are the most on the Mavericks by far. The only other Mavericks that have experience are the guys that have played 8 games, the ones that have played on the Mavericks. Dwight Powell, Maxey Kleber, Luka, Dorian. Porzingis has played 5. Brunson, Melli, and Cauley-Stein have only played 2 games each. So 91 total games played in the playoffs for the Dallas Mavericks. Now, how many players on the Clippers have played more playoff games than the entire Mavericks team combined? A couple of them are easy. I'll give you the number. There's 3.
Yeah, Kawhi, Ibaka.
Yep.
And
our boy.
Beverly?
No, Rondo.
Oh, Rondo, yeah.
Ibaka, 146 playoff games. The Mavericks total have played 91. That's insane. Rondo, 123. Kawhi Leonard, 126. Collectively, the Clippers have played 704 total playoff games. The Mavericks have played 91. Think about that difference. Think about all the experience. And obviously, the team on average is 3 years older. So it makes sense that they would have played more playoff games. But that big of a difference is absolutely wild. And because when you're watching this team, the experience of the Clippers just doesn't show up anywhere, right? Like, it just doesn't seem to, going through, especially in these first two games, like it could show up in game 3 and we go, oh, there it is. This is when a team steps up. But so far it hasn't. They've shrunk in the moment. They had a chance to win both games 1 and game 2 in the clutch and decided not to, or just didn't do it, right? Yeah. And a couple people have reached out to me and said, didn't you say that Rajon Rondo is the reason why, that they got, the reason why they got him was to bring him in and be the guy that kicked everybody's butt when they were going to lose a game like game 2. Like, yeah, it's true. And apparently there's a report that he was getting into Ty Lue's face and Serge Ibaka's face. I don't know why Serge Ibaka, he didn't play. I don't know why he was getting into him, but
Serge's like, I got 5 minutes, bro.
He's supposed to be that guy, and apparently it's just not working. It's not happening.
Yeah, I think.
But
do you think Rondo plays more moving forward?
I brought this up because I wanted to talk about the Luka legacy thing and all that. This may not be a team like the Pistons, but they have the experience like one. Like Rondo, multiple finals. Kawhi, multiple finals. You have Serge Ibaka, multiple finals. You have Paul George played 90. Paul George played 91 playoff games, the same as the entire Mavericks team combined. He's been to multiple conference finals games. He has that experience. But yeah, it's just very interesting to see this type of team with this much experience, not together, but separately at least, to be losing to this Mavericks team.
Then you compare Rick Carlisle playoff games to Ty Lue playoff games.
Yeah, those are different. The amount of times Rick Carlisle has been stepped over by a player and the amount of times Ty Lue has. So I bring this up to say the Mavericks shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be the conversation, right? It's wild that they're in this spot. This Clippers team, there's just so many flaws. Like, there's so many flaws that are just glaring, and it seems like you could just out offense them. And the Mavericks obviously have been hitting their open threes, which has been a problem all year. So that's a variable that could change for the Dallas Mavericks, and hopefully at home it doesn't. But
for like
I
a
found
normal
that really
star and a normal roster like this, it's kind of like the Giannis, timeline. Like, oh man, they're like 2 years away.
Yeah.
Or not Giannis, Bruno, right? Caboclo. It's like, oh yeah, 2 years.
2 years away from 2 years away.
Yeah, it's like it isn't normal for 22-year-olds like this to look like this in a playoff series. And if they win this series, like, okay, like it will be similar to some of these moments that we've been talking about. Now, what will prevent them from winning the series? What can the Clippers do? Like, what is the adjustment for I keep on waiting for them to go small. Like, I was shocked that Zubac started that game, and I keep on waiting for them to say, "Sorry, Zoo, sorry, Serge, you're not playing very much, and we're gonna give all your minutes to Terrence Mann, and they're just gonna go super small and start Morris or something at center and say we're just going to do this, and we're not gonna put anybody on the floor like that." I'm just shocked they haven't done that yet.
The thing is, though, don't the Mavericks do what they've been doing in crunch time when the Clippers have been going small? They just leave Porzingis out there, or you go small with Dwight as the 5 and just or Willie as the 5 and just pick and roll them to death, right?
Yeah,
because
now
you don't have to defend Batum or right, like, you don't have to defend him out at the 3-point line. You can stand there at the 3-point line, but he's not going to be dribbling around and doing anything that Willie or Dwight can't guard.
I'm waiting for the Dwight counter to them wanting to I keep on waiting for them to want to treat Luka like Steph. Like, one of the most mind-boggling things was watching Steph in the play-in tournament, and to see it felt like I was watching youth basketball or high school basketball, and to see an NBA team like the Lakers and the Grizzlies just literally put 2 people on Steph as soon as he crosses half court and say, we will not let you. Because some teams try, joke about it, oh, we're going to send 2 at him. Yeah, it's they wait. It's like a delayed trap. No, it's legitimately, we're going to trap you. I keep on waiting for the Clippers to do that and to suck up some of their pride and say, you know what, even though we have Kawhi and these guys, we're just going to do the Steph treatment. And at that point, I'm waiting for Rick to counter with Dwight of saying, all right, now you're going to do that. like some of these other, like the Lakers did in that one game in the regular season. You're going to do that. Then we're going to put a roller out there and say, all right. And Luka's just going to have a field day with it, like hitting Dwight, or he's going to hit the open man in the corner. And that's the stuff that I keep on waiting for them to stop switching. It's like, when are you going to stop switching? But
the thing is about the switching is, what are they supposed to do, right? Like, if they don't switch, then you're asking that initial defender to fight through all these screens. And by the time they fight through the screen, if it's a good screen set by Maxey or Dwight or Willie or somebody, then or even the guards have been setting good screens.
Yeah.
If they set a good enough screen, that by the time they get over it, Luka has hit a mid-range jumper already.
Yeah.
Game's just gotten so fast. You can't afford to not switch anymore. This is that whole conversation that Candace Parker was getting on Shaq about. Shaq was like, well, why don't you go ahead and why don't you just guard him straight up? Guard him. Why you got to switch? And Candace Parker's like, because by the time that the guy gets there, it won't matter, right? Like, remember that whole thing that went viral? Like, that's what the NBA is now. Everyone's so fast, and Luka makes decisions so quick.
Yeah, and you have to have the players to be able to do that, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the switching stuff. They try to switch and target Pat Beverly, or they try to switch and target Zubac. It's like, all right, well, now we got to
get him either way.
Yeah, now we got to try to find 5 players, and honestly, it hasn't mattered as much. Like, Luka has shown no care if Kawhi's guarding him. That play in which Kawhi is guarding him, and he just like clears it out. He backs down to Kawhi and does the one-legged fadeaway, and just it's the rainbow teardrop
where the net doesn't move at all,
barely move. I'm like, all right, like what are we doing right now? Also, is there a world in which Beverly's just out of the rotation and they just say, screw it, we're doing Rondo and Pat Beverly?
He should be, but they need a kick in the pants from a guy like him, right?
But he's not kicking. Like,
no,
he's not doing anything. Terrence Mann is what could give, like, Terrence Mann is what they think Pat Beverly is. And that's what they, like, they need to give all Pat Beverly's minutes to Terrence Mann. And just play Rondo and Reggie Jackson at point guard. I don't understand any reason why Pat Beverly's on the floor, but from a Mavericks perspective, play him 30 minutes.
Here's another thing I think has to change for him. First half and the second half for Kawhi Leonard have been incredibly different, and I think it could be a fatigue factor, injury factor. There's something to this because
don't give me that fatigue crap. Injury, sure. Fatigue, get out of here.
Well, the injuries can bring on fatigue, right? You're working a little bit. You're working a little bit harder through the injury, and so he
played really hard against Houston and OKC to finish the season. So
he's had a bunch of injuries in his career, but they've been resting him back-to-backs of like every game. So yeah. I don't know, but first half combined, first game and second game, Kawhi 47 points, 15 of 24 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3, 13 of 14 from the free throw line. 4 assists, 5 steals, -5 in the plus-minus. Second half, total. 20 points, 8 of 9 from the field, 1 of 7 from 3, 3 of 5 from the free throw line. So think about that. 14 free throw attempts in first half of the 2 games. 5 free throw attempts in the second half. It's not just because he's not getting a whistle. He's not attacking. He's taking jumpers. 3 assists, 1 steal, -17 in second halves. Like, Kawhi can't carry them the way that he has been in the first half. And you wonder that's the reason why he's not straight up guarding Luka the whole time. He just can't. They need him too much on offense because no one else. This team is built around not having to have these guards that initiate offense, but they kind of need it, right? Like, you need it in today's NBA. You need a guy like Trae Young, Luka, LeBron, like James Harden. You need somebody like that, and they just don't.
No, they don't, and I absolutely.
And that's fine.
And that is perfectly fine.
Now, the script can change. What if the Mavericks shoot 27% from 3?
Yeah.
Are we still having the same conversation? Maybe not. Like, there's a little bit.
Maybe not, but one of the counters to all this is, I think you tweeted out today, or somebody did, like all the statistical categories that they won in game 2, and they still lost. And it's like they still shot at 54% from the field. They still shot at almost 40%, 39.something% from 3 this past game. They still attempted they hit a lot of these benchmarks and they still lost.
But this is what I'm saying. The variance of the 3-point shot. In game 2, the Clippers had more rebounds, more made free throws, more fast break points, more points off turnovers, more points in the paint, more bench points, more points in the fourth quarter. The Clippers were better than the Mavericks in all those categories and still lost because the Mavericks made more threes. Right? And so if the Mavs stop hitting their threes, then all of a sudden this series is completely different. We're talking about something the Mavs might be down 0-2 than up 2-0.
Yeah, and I think that's what Ty Lue's banking on, right? I mean, you look at his comments after the game the other day. It's like, all right, let's see. And it's almost in a way, it's like he's discrediting in a way. It's like, let's see if they can keep up the shooting at home. I'm like,
100%.
Okay.
Which doesn't make any sense. You'd think that I don't know.
If they don't win this series, Ty Lue is gonna get torched.
He might be gone. Ballmer might not handle that.
On top of his decision making, some of his quotes have been,
"There's no pressure on us. They just got to win 4 games." No, the Mavericks
your situation is the definition of pressure.
Yeah, right.
Don't. Yeah.
I love how Carlisle was the one that was like, "Yes, we have pressure to win the series," when the Mavericks literally didn't have any.
Yeah, that's true. Also, homework for listeners: go look up the 2001 Mavericks playoff series and look at the similarities of that until now. Mavericks 5-4, Mavs against Jazz. Dirk Nowitzki's 22 years old.
Ooh.
Luka's 22.
I like that.
He also had Michael Finley back then and Nashi, but had an old Malone, old Stockton. I know Kawhi and Paul George are not, they're not in their late 30s, but
second half Kawhi's looking like he's in his late 30s.
It's still a Jazz team that had these guys, at 4-5 matchup, like I said. Dirk and Finley, they both averaged around like 19, 20. But it's like, wow. I went back and looked at early Dirk years, these early playoff series. I'm like, oh man, this could be kind of similar a little bit. But
interesting. Go check that out. We'll be back with more. We will be back with a post game also on Friday. So our podcast Friday morning for sure. And then check us back out when we do a post game for game 3. Whew, the Mavs go up 3-0, baby. Oh, that AAC crowd is going to be going nuts. And I'm very excited to experience it. Isaac, you're going to be there in person.
I will be there. I'm so excited, man. This place is going to be, near capacity as far as crowd goes. Luka's first playoff game in Dallas. It's not even, words can't describe what this atmosphere is going to be like.
Absolutely. And I love the quote that Tim Hardaway Jr. said afterwards. We know who we're playing. We're not going to overestimate, or we're not going to celebrate or anything like that. We're going to go into business and not overestimate or not underestimate our opponent. Love that attitude. Hopefully they stick to that. All right, we'll be back with more. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.